the big boys are FOMOing in. Bitcoin whales acquired nearly $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Even right now, even with volatility, with stagnation, sideways movement, these guys, this is how you're supposed to do it. If you live through previous cycles, you'll know that this is normal. Very, very normal. In fact, not just normal, like super, super strong. Bitcoin has never really been this strong in previous cycles. We saw much bigger dips. Much, much bigger dips along the way. This time around, we had some dips. We just had a pretty big one around 23%. But still, that's very tame compared to previous cycles, right? And these boys, these big boys and whales and institutions and banks know this is the time to be picking up. This is the time to be loading up, not time to be selling. But of course, if you want to stretch it out a little bit, you want to go a little bit beyond this cycle, where is Bitcoin going to be? Well, what about this magical $1 million mark? 7 digits for a single Bitcoin, which seems impossible at this time. But once Bitcoin gets to 200,000, it's not going to seem that impossible anymore because it's only requiring 5x to go to a million, right? Well, Jack Dorsey, who just, one of the Bitcoin bulls out there, and he just was interviewed, and he says Bitcoin's going to be at 1 million by 2030. And he's not alone. A lot of people think 1 million by 2030 is a reality. And that's only 6 years away from now. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. You think sometimes you just have to wait forever. But you know what? Imagine just waiting 6 years for it to be at $1 million each. That means if your whole coin are at 1, you'll be a millionaire already in 6 years. I mean, that's not that long to wait. If you have 2, if you have 5, if you have 10, you just multiply that by a million. That's a lot. And that's not even the most bullish scenario. Kathy Wood thinks that by the time we hit 2030, Bitcoin could be $3.8 million. Yeah, that's right. She used to think it was going to be, 1.5 million. Now she thinks by 2030, Bitcoin could be at $3.8 million. And she's saying that because if 5% of institutional investors put their allocation to Bitcoin, that's how high Bitcoin would be. Just 5% of their portfolio, right? $3.8 million by 2030. Now that is nutty. That is insanely nutty. You could be a centimillionaire in 6 years just by holding on enough Bitcoins, or even a billionaire. I mean, just think about that. That's absolutely nutty. So things are looking good, guys. Bullish stuff always happening in this space. You never want to get feared out of the market. Now, short term, we're seeing some good patterns build up. Inverse head and shoulders, okay? I've shown this before, but it does kind of look like that's what's happening right now. If it's not inverse, if it's just head and shoulders, it seems more believable. But somehow when it's an inverse head and shoulders, people don't quite believe it. But that is the pattern that we're going through right now. And even if you didn't believe that, believe this, okay? Every single cycle, you have dips. You do have dips, okay? It doesn't go up forever. This morning, I made a big point about it. There were a lot of scary, fuddish articles out there, okay? If you just read it as it's written without any context of anything else, yeah, it seems pretty darn scary. But then I added some context. Yeah, April was a bad month, and May so far hasn't been that great either. But why is that? Because we had 7 consecutive green months prior. That's why. We had a breather month, just like what you see here. Look at that. Just count that, right? We had a lot of green months, and we had 1 red month. That does not mean the cycle is over. That does not mean the parabolic phase of this cycle is canceled. It just means that we have to wait a little bit longer. That is it. You got to have patience when it comes to Bitcoin, right? So that is what I want to say about Bitcoin. It did bounce back a little bit. We'll see the numbers tomorrow, but I do think We are just simply going sideways at this point. We're consolidating, we're getting ready, and there are so many great things happening in this space. You really don't want to be, as I say, feared out or fudded out in the market at this point, right? So stay strong. But overall, guys, you know, I've been saying this, and why you guys may be thinking, well, why are you talking about this, right? And what does that have to do with anything in relation to Bitcoin? Because all of this has to do with Bitcoin. All the economic policies have not been so good in terms of preserving your wealth. And we have this kind of like on and off thing, right? Where we have either the money printer being turned on or turned off, and then we have whether the rates are going to be increased or decreased. It's all basically trying to manipulate the market. It's trying to either curb inflation or try to decrease inflation. But all of this, you know, it's all like convoluted and it's all shenanigans. And the more you learn about it, the more you just like give up and just throw your hands in the air. It's like, you know what? I just want to opt out of everything. Okay. I don't get what any of this means, but what I want to know is how do I preserve my wealth and how do I make more money, right? Ultimately, that's what we all want to know. But yeah, currencies around the world not doing so well. The Japanese yen is decreasing against the USDC. This is the only reason why the U.S. government can do what they do. All the shenanigans that they're doing with rate cuts and rate hikes, and also with the quantitative easing and quantitative tightening, all these things. The only reason why they're able to do it is because the dollar right now is stronger than other currencies, right? Including the euro, including the sterling, including everything else against the dollar. They are just weaker. So we in the U.S. have this advantage. That's why our government does not care about more printing or more borrowing, because we think other countries will want it forever. But that's just not the case. Eventually that gravy train is going to stop. We got retail investors that are panicking, yet the big boys, the whales, the institutions are loading up. In fact, this is a Google search interest for the term crypto. It is lower now than when Bitcoin was at 20,000. Again, showing that retail interest, retail investors are very, very low this cycle. Very low this cycle. Can you imagine being more bearish now at 62,000 Bitcoin versus 20,000 Bitcoin? It's 3 times higher, yet the interest for crypto is lower. Take a second to think about that, okay? That's the unfortunate thing, and that's why memes are so hot right now, because most people out there, they're not searching, okay, at least the retail people, they're not really searching for the next L1 or L2 or hot dApp to invest in. They're looking at memes specifically, right? And the institutions are looking at Bitcoin. So that's kind of like the weird thing that's happening this cycle. It's actually quite weird. But nevertheless, they will FOMO in. When things start moving up again, that's when retail FOMOs in. And unfortunately, that's usually the wrong time to be buying. Right now is the time to be buying. Anytime we're low, or you could argue just DCA over time, set a schedule and forget about it. That's how you're supposed to do it.